all hear that addiction is about disconnection and recovery is about connection, right? We all hear that? Connection with what? Sometimes we maybe don't know, and it's been helpful for me. There's teachings that were shared with me that I'm going to share with you all today. And it's going to also connect to some of the work that we're trying to do in the jail. I grew up disconnected from myself. I didn't know my story. I didn't know the history of my family. I didn't know these things. I knew that I felt different. I knew that I felt alone. I could be in a room full of people like this, and they could be saying good things about me, and I could not be there with you. I couldn't feel that. I felt like if you knew me the way that I know me, you wouldn't like me either. If you knew the truth, we could not be connected. And I spent a long time trying to protect myself. I'm a sensitive dude. I got these three knuckleheads that we went camping, negative 22 degrees out in the Boundary Waters, and they showed up today, I think just to give me a hard time, but Colin hasn't yelled out anything yet, so I'm grateful for that, bro. I opened myself up for that one. But I covered that up. It's not safe to be sensitive. It's not safe to talk about feelings. I don't know what type of family we all grew up in, but I didn't know what was happening half the time. I didn't feel safe. And I learned as a man to protect myself. And the authentic part of me got buried and buried and buried. And the pain increased and it increased until it got to be so hot that I couldn't touch it. It would burn me when I would touch that. When my mother would say to me, I think you're going to die, and I'm trying to find a way to live with that. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't touch it. It hurt too much. And I used to hear people talk about denial. I don't know if that's a helpful way of looking at it. It hurt too much for me to hear her, to hear that truth. Because when I held it burned. So I buried it, I ignored it. But I tell you, the first time I used it, that was the solution. I didn't have a drug problem. I had a running out problem. Any of you have that? Yeah? I had a drug solution, and it worked real well until it didn't. It's hard to get enough of something that almost works, right? Oh, maybe if I just tweak it a little bit, I need to just measure, I can't be just doing it down. I gotta get the golden ratio, right? Get my calculator out. How many of you are amateur pharmacists? I was expert, so yeah, we're experts, right? And meanwhile, this pain, it was sitting here, it was red hot. And I could not touch that. And when it came time for me to address it, I would have to recoil. I could not do it by myself. And so when I think about the recovery process, it wasn't about, yes, I needed to probably stop using to be able to even be present in a room. I couldn't hear anything, I couldn't be with you. But what I needed to find was hope. So when we think about harm reduction, when we think about recovery, it's not an absence of pain that we're looking for. If pain got people into recovery and kept them there, none of us would be here today. Think of the pain that our folks have carried. There is nothing that we can bring that is going to be as painful as the consequences of living with this. We were in prison. I was trapped. This little molecule was leading me around by the nose every day. And at some point I realized that I wanted what I saw from someone else. And this is the part that when I come up here and I get invited to meals, or I get invited to ceremony, or I get invited to meetings, I get to see again people that have what I want real bad. So I have my little canned speech that I was going to do, and it just feels silly, right? Because it's really what I want is, we had 2 young men who shared their stories on that first day, and I told them that evening, I was sleepwalking, and you woke me up. You woke me up. I think the most important people here today are probably the ones that are suffering the most. This is as much about community, it seems to me, as it is about, we're not learning, we're being together. So for me, that authentic part of me, finally realizing who I am, where I come from. I learned that my grandfather got into recovery the day I was born, when I was 17 years old. I didn't know these stories. So for me, coming from that place of authenticity and being safe in that was the first process of connection. The second process was connecting with other people from that place of authenticity, sharing with you who I am. Because I was just fake. I couldn't be real. And my recovery process was related to that. If people see what they want and they can feel hope and they can come from that place of authenticity and they feel safe, that's what I think harm reduction is about. And this is when I heard Sam talking about, what do people feel? How do they feel when they come into harm point? Do they feel wrapped up in love? Do they feel like this place was made for you? And that's what I want to talk about. Because the system that we work within, the system that is the stateside system, is colonizing, it is extractive, it is punitive, and yet our folks go through that. So how do we get them from a place that uses them, that breaks them, that takes things from them, and get them to a place where we built this for you. This is exactly where you're perfect for us. This is here. And then the third part of the connection process for me was this process of meaning, finding meaning and purpose in my life. Everything that I wanted from using, I found in recovery. I wanted to be useful. I wanted to be a good son. I wanted to be a good brother. I wanted to be able to walk through my community and not feel like I needed to watch my back. So I wanted to share that first. In 2019, I lost one of my closest friends, my closest friend, to fentanyl overdose. He was my first real friend in recovery. You know how when you get in recovery and you're hanging out with people, and I'll hang out with anybody if it means I can stay well. But he was the first one. We got into recovery in 2008. He did pretty well. We started grad school together, and about 2/3 of the way through, he started using again. He was really struggling. And he'd come back around and he'd ask me for help periodically, and sometimes, he'd ask and I kind of dip, and then he'd ask and come back. I'd never seen somebody work so hard. He kept trying, and he kept trying, and he kept trying, and he kept trying. He called me one day, and at the time I was clinical director at Hazelden. I was 10 years into my own recovery, and I thought, if anybody should be able to help this man, I should be able to help him. And I could not get him into a program. He didn't have the right insurance. They said, hey, come back in 2 weeks. And I'm like, it might as well be 2 years. 2 weeks? Fentanyl and methamphetamine? 2 weeks? Called Fairview every morning. We did this whole dance, pulled out all the stops. I called in a bunch of favors. I got some guys from the recovery community to go and pick him up and get him in. And he went to a program, a non-clinical recovery program that they didn't believe in the use of medications. Medications for opioid use disorder. You hear Carl talk about MOUD. We have 3 FDA-approved medications, and 2 of them I thought were drugs, not medicine. You hear Suboxone and methadone. Buprenorphine is the ingredient in the Suboxone. I had internalized that stigma. It says that's not clean. That's not recovery. It's trading one drug for another. He goes to the program, he gets out, his tolerance has gone down, he died. And we've all probably lived this in many ways. I've gone through this process of change for myself. I got into recovery 2008, old school, 12-step, something hit it hard. And like I said, I didn't internalize this, the stigma against these medications. I went to a conference, there was a presentation kind of about this size, and the guy got up there and said something to the effect of, well, you can do treatment without medicine, but you can't charge money for it because it has nothing to do with helping people. And that blew my mind, and I was so angry. I also knew enough about myself that if I didn't address that anger, I was in trouble. That was me, like real quiet, and then like just rage inside. So I said, hey, will you like have lunch with me and I can ask you questions? Turns out he was in long-term recovery himself.